And away we go. Alright then. So, we all know the drill by now. Stuff sent in the group chat, whatever we seen somewhere, because, well, social media these days. I don't know, man. I try to be open-minded about this. Yet there are particular entities, and I'm not saying that they're the ones controlling the world. There's going to be obstacles that is going to challenge us in many ways, physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and even socially as well, if anything. Anyway, let's see what me and the lads of the podcasts have sent in the group chat that we've seen somewhere on social media because, well, we're just bored. And that's not to say we agree with these people or disagree. That's social media, and it says a lot. I'll admit that. So, starting off with, here is a Instagram reel. I've sent a dump of Instagram reels. There's just a couple of them. The first one of the bunch is a video regarding Chappell Roan, Jorginho, Jorginho's 11-year-old daughter, and yeah. Now, for those that don't know, how do those two things come together? Like a pop star and a famous soccer football player in one story. Well, how is that even possible? Well, you're about to find out. I'm about to play the audio right now.
After claiming Champions League winning footballer Jorginho's 11-year-old daughter, who approached her at a breakfast bar in a hotel in Sao Paulo, was a clout-chasing little so-and-so who couldn't take no for an answer when asking for a picture. The beef is spread online like wildfire, with Jorginho claiming that the Pink Pony Club singer was unnecessarily rude to his daughter, who just wanted to meet one of her idols. However, Chappell Roan's version of the story goes slightly differently, with her claiming the child approached her saying, "My daddy's more famous than you are. I bet you couldn't even make it in the Europa Conference League, let alone win the Champions League." Then she got upset when I screamed back in her face, "2 World Wars and 1 World Cup." And she ran away like a little baby, not an 11-year-old girl. Chappell Roan, whilst being American, has always said when it comes to sport, she's an English football supporter through and through. Leading on to believe her actions may have been in response to spotting Jorginho at the breakfast bar and wanting to get in some retaliation for Italy beating England in the 2020 Euros final. Both stars of different worlds have refused to back down, with fans of each saying that the only way to resolve this is the first one of them to win a major trophy in the other's specialist field. So for Chappell Roan, that'd be like winning the World Cup this year, and for Jorginho, that would be like winning BBC's Sound of 2026.
Well, there's no rock and go with that. Besides, actually, no, I'm not gonna go there. I was gonna say, how hard can it be? Then realizing, yeah, it's a lot harder than it sounds. Whether it be trying to get your music to be recognized and get recognition for your music across the globe, and trying to become a professional soccer football player. So yeah, I just thought, nah, that can't be what I was gonna say. So yeah, I was gonna say, oh, it can't be that hard. Then realizing, it's a lot harder than you think it is. Well, in my opinion, more so with soccer and football. That's not to say that it is hard. I'm not saying it's not hard to become a famous music artist. There's still a lot of challenges there as well. I will say that. And all the jokes aside about the football references, no, that's pretty clever. I'll give him that. That's pretty. And also the 2020 Euro final. That is spot on. Again, well said. Anyway, enough of the jokes. Put all that aside. I have a lot to say in regards to the chaperone, Jorginho's 11-year-old daughter, trying to get a photo. And the video Instagram reel I just played for you is kind of dated. There's actually a lot more information regarding that story since then, in regards to what people say described as one of Chaperone's bodyguards or security guards. And I'll tell you right now, that particular detail was quite a mess. That I've heard a lot more social media posts and people online saying it was actually one of Chaperone's bodyguards that was rude to Jorginho's daughter. And in that particular detail, that is very messy. There's one group of people saying it was Chappell Roan's security guard that was rude to Jorginho's daughter, whilst another group of people saying no, that security guard was not part of Chappell Roan's security detail. He was a staff of the hotel which the bunch were staying at in São Paulo. And more information has now been revealed. That security guard was not working for Chappell Roan at the time. Yeah, he was still rude to Jorginho's daughter anyway, because why the heck not? He literally done what he did for the love of the game. And even without information now being known that whoever the security guard is not with Chappell Roan to perform at Lollapalooza in Rio de Janeiro, as announced by the aforementioned city's mayor, because of, again, the aforementioned incident in the São Paulo hotel, which she was staying at the same time as Jorginho's family. Just comes to show, life is unfair, and it will continue to be unfair. What's important is how do you go through it? That I will say. Now, one thing I'll say in defense of Chappell Roan is that this isn't the first time that Chappell Roan had to address incidents like this publicly. Not saying she's a terrible person with her fans, Chappell Roan. I will say that I'm aware that Chappell Roan has stated that whilst she acknowledges the support she has gotten and still receives regarding her music, she has made clear many times that she has set boundaries. She wants to set boundaries for herself between her and her fans, and there are times that Chappell Roan said, "I'm not working. I'm not in the mood for socializing," and that is okay. It is okay to say, "I don't have the energy to communicate. I am absolutely knackered from the show I have been. I need to lay down in bed and rest for a couple hours and ready for tomorrow morning, doing what I've been asked to do." That is also okay. Chappell Roan isn't the only person that wants to have set boundaries and have some kind of privacy from her work life. Other celebrities also want their privacy as well. They also want their own boundaries. They want time in their lives outside of being a famous, notable person, outside of their work, to spend time with their family without having to think about what their career is. Whilst they're still working in their career, celebrities are still people too. They still have their own personal lives to attend to, like we all do. And we should respect that. I understand fans want to meet their idols. They want to meet the celebrities that they look up to for so many years. That does not mean you could go to their house, knock on their door and say, "Hey, I'm your biggest fan, can I take a picture?" What if the celebrity says no? Think about that. Not a lot of cases celebrities will say no, not just because they're trying to be nice, they just don't know how to handle the situation without having to make themselves look like the bad guy. Personally, I don't want to come out as rude. I don't want to be harsh. I will put my foot down. And whilst I appreciate the support that I'm getting for whatever work I am doing, I have my own life to attend to. Like the fans have their lives to attend to as well. That I will say in defense of Chappell Roan. I know not a lot of people, and even Eric and Risk, do not agree and do not like the personality and even the work of Chappell Roan. I will say, she deserves to have her moment of privacy, and she is allowed to set her own boundaries, even if it means a handful of her fans are going to be pissed, and they are not going to like what Chappell Roan is setting out for herself. It is okay to have your own boundaries and have your own life outside of work. That I will say. I don't understand why this is a controversial topic. Think about the celebrities that live in Los Angeles County that are bombarded with paparazzi journalists and photographers. Surely they know exactly how to handle with people invading their privacy and handle people that won't leave them alone until they have gotten what they were looking for. At some point, celebrities have their breaking point. Some have more breaking points than others. So, so yeah, that is all I will say in regards to that story. I will leave it at that. All right, next Instagram reel I've sent in a massive bulk is a video regarding to United States ICE, and the guy that made this video responded to a news story about how ICE is handling operations and handling foreigners that are currently residing in the United States. The text within the video reads, "Anti-ICE wokies become ICE. Laughing emoji, surprised emoji." Here is the audio.
Tonight, Minneapolis police are stepping in after a community created their own method of public safety against ICE. The flames burn as people stand guard. We are literally creating a place that we know who's coming and going. So you're setting up checkpoints around the perimeter of your neighborhood because you want to know who's coming and going and being able to account for who's in your area. Isn't that the...
That was the video. I'm not sure why there was a cutoff there. The point is, he got his point across, and he's questioning, why are you setting these boundaries? Again, I have nothing against setting certain boundaries, setting up checkpoints to see who comes in, who comes out. And in regards to the whole video in question about how ICE are operating, this is not to take away the fact about how foreigners are being treated whilst they're in the United States, and this is certainly not taking away the fact about the severity of these ICE operations that have at some points resulted in people losing their lives, being caught in crossfires of ICE operations. And I do send my condolences to the friends and family of those lost lives who were caught in crossfires with these ICE operations. What I would say is, I'm not going to argue about setting up checkpoints, accounting for who comes in and who comes out, for the sake of protecting people in particular neighborhoods and protecting enjoying the safety of other people living in communities, whether it be in Minneapolis, the state of Minnesota, and across the United States. I know some people will argue in regards to everything I just said isn't that what ICE is supposed to be doing? Isn't ICE supposed to go into communities, tackle with the illegal foreigners currently residing in the United States, again, illegally, and then send them back to not the country that these foreigners are from, the countries which the foreigners exited to get into the United States? That's what some people will argue. In my opinion, I can't argue with that. And again, out of the lives of people who were lost, whilst these ICE operations have been going on since Donald Trump reassumed the White House for his second term, it's unfortunate lives have been lost. Although not many lives have been lost, I am disappointed that lives were still lost anyway. And if there's any way to reduce how many lives have been lost during these ICE operations, I'm not going to say so be it, or do it. I just hope there were other ways of handling these operations and situations across all of the 50 US states. And in regards to foreigners coming into foreign countries, I have no problem with foreigners coming into the United States, the UK, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Poland. I have nothing against people migrating to another country, trying to find shelter, find places to work in, and contribute to local economies. I'm alright with that. With that being said, I'm okay with that. I'm alright with people from other countries moving to other countries, whether it be to find work, provide sanctuary for families to get away from concerningly and dangerous circumstances in the countries they previously resided in, and or a third factor that maybe only foreigners would likely understand more than I would. I got nothing else to say. I hope there are other ways of handling migration, who comes in, who comes out, without lives being lost, or at least give people time to prepare. If if people have something to declare or show to show that they came here legally, they are allowed to live here and to work in the country which they are currently residing in. At least give people time to prepare for an interview, a checkup, so on and so forth. At least have that into account. At least give people time to prepare for such procedures and gather the documents that they need to show to prove that they are allowed to reside in the country which they are currently residing in. Alright. Next Instagram reel shows a couple of black SUVs. The text within the video reads, "Images after Epstein's death shot by an anonymous drone." And I'm not sure if there's anyone speaking in this. I'll play it anyway. Okay. So there weren't any people speaking in that. So yeah, just watching the video in full. This is literally drone footage showing two people, one sitting next to and one sitting on top of black vehicles, a black SUV and a black golf cart. Not a golf cart. I'm not sure. A quad bike. It's at least a vehicle on four wheels. And yeah, that's as much context that I could get from that video. This is from a while ago, whilst people were talking about the Epstein files, and then parts of the Epstein files were made public by the DOJ, only for then the DOJ to delete parts of the Epstein files, and then people have made websites like Epstein Exposed, jmail.world, showing all of the publicly available information regarding the Epstein files, so people understand what Jeffrey Epstein was all about. Of course, people that were involved in the Epstein files are still trying to bang on the media, raise awareness, trying to get a verdict to be delivered in regards to the Epstein files. Unfortunately, I doubt there's going to be any more progression with the Epstein files until another significant piece of evidence comes into light. Then news stories will then be pointing towards the new set of evidence that have been made public by the Department of Justice in the United States, or by victims of the Epstein files, who have been so traumatized by the affiliates of the files that no amount of money could ever fix. Very unfortunate. Next Instagram reel, I've sent in a massive bulk. It's a video. I am certain this doesn't have any talking whatsoever. The Instagram reel question shows a group of friends getting on a ride, and it's only just them. No one else is actually getting on this ride. I'm not sure what I would call it. So, playing the video now, if it'll allow me. The video is playing. All the friends, except one girl, get off last minute, leaving this one girl that thought, "Oh, are we gonna ride together?" And then eventually, that one girl that was left was like, "They left me. Oh, poor thing. She didn't deserve that." I hope that girl finds better friends at some point in the future. If not, then at some point, a time like that will come for her. I know that for sure. Even I don't know her, I know good things will come to those who wait. Alright. Final Instagram reel I've sent in one massive bulk to the lads. There's a guy doing these interviews with protesters, asking them questions about the protests that are involved in. I think there's more context that's better described by the video itself.
Actually, what you just said is actually considered super violent. So what you just said is, I think, pretty insightful of violence. Don't you agree?
Like racist ice that are shooting.
So you just called myself a Nazi, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the only way to get Nazis out of power is to what? It's to be violent and kill them, right? Do you want to kill me?
No.
But you just called me a Nazi, and the only way to get Nazis out of power is to kill them. You just said you want to kill me.
I don't personally.
Do you think that the leftist people want to kill me? Do you think that the left wants to kill me?
Yeah.
Do you agree that the left is more violent than the right?
I'm not sure where to go with this. I know everyone is entitled to their opinions, even if people strongly disagree with those opinions. And of course, I will say, there have been people, many decades ago, who have been violent. That does not mean you should go be violent on those said people, even if whatever consequence comes to those people are justified. Do not stoop to their level. And I am not going against any groups of people. I'm just condemning violence of any sort against any groups of people. So more about this video. So more about the video I just played. Yeah. Again, I don't have anything against the women that spoke in that video. It's just one of those. It's just a question is being given to you, and then all of a sudden you just pick a answer at random, and then people are like, what? Hold on, what? Why would you say that? That doesn't add up. Again, does not invalidate anything that people of reviews are saying. It's just a case of at least understand the question that's been asked, even if it's so simple. At least have those questions in the backlog, so when another question comes about, which is somewhat relevant to the previous questions, at least then you would know what you've said then, and then give an answer that again further proves the views that you have about the questions being asked to you. That I would say. Even if this video was the other way around, like if the interviewer that leans to the left was interviewing people that leans to the right, and then they answered questions yes or no, yet how they answered didn't add up to the last few questions, I would still say, well, what the fudge? You said yes to this, but you said no to that. That collides with each other. How does that make any sense? That I will say, regardless of what views you have on the world, it's just a case of putting previously asked questions to the sides in the backlogs and refer back to them to see if there's any questions that's been given to you, it's somewhat relevant to the previous questions you've been asked, and then you understand where these questions are going, and then you can try to be consistent with how you answer them. Not to say that not expecting people to be perfect, not everyone should know everything. It's at least worth understanding the situation that you're in. Again, even if it is blatantly obvious that this person is trying to say it. So, you don't like Nazis, and the only way to get Nazis out of power is to kill them. Even contexts are obvious, and even if there are groups of people whose actions are unexcusable that shouldn't have happened, still, I would still say, not that I'm defending people that commit violence. I'd say you got to be careful with how you answer these questions, because you never know. Like how I watched that video, it sounded like this woman actually wants people to be killed. And again, whilst the actions of these people groups are unexcusable, and they shouldn't have happened to begin with, do not stoop to their level. Ever. That I will say. one more thing I would say in regards to that interview with the protesters, and I know not a lot of people, and I know there'll be people that share similar views to Eric and Risk 11. They certainly do not like the views of these women, nor would they ever be friends with them. I will say, I hope these women stay safe. Not that anyone should agree with what they're saying, I just hope they stay safe. It's a cruel world out there. You never know. Whatever harsh punishments people are advocating for, that is then inflicted onto them. That's about it. Final thing I've sent to the group chat towards the lads, well, as of the last time I recorded a podcast episode, is a screenshot of an Instagram story by the Instagram account Fact Check Politics. The Instagram story in question, which I screenshotted, reads, latest, Keir Starmer is planning to give Sadiq Khan. When I read that, I was like, really? Are you sure about that? And I'm genuinely being serious. Are you sure about that? Now, first thing is, of course, Sadiq Khan, according to some or most people, is a high-profile critic of what Keir Starmer's doing. Even if Keir Starmer is willing to give Sadiq Khan a seat in the House of Lords, only when he is no longer the Mayor of Greater London. Because that's the thing that needs to be considered. Is it possible, or is it allowed, to give someone a seat in the House of Lords if that individual is in a position of power as a devolution mayor, a councillor in a councillor, or any other power positions in the UK government, local or national level? Not sure if there's anything that's going to stop people from being given a seat in the House of Lords, and what measures needs to be taken to ensure that would even be remotely be allowed. Another thing I would say is, even when Sadiq Khan does get a seat in the House of Lords, is Sadiq Khan going to drop all the criticisms that he has for Sir Keir Starmer, or is he still going to say Keir's not doing a very good job as leader of the Labour Party? Plus, there has to be another leadership election. Again, this is considering if he is in the House of Lords giving criticisms about the current UK government under Keir Starmer. That's the other thing. No matter what people currently in power do to ensure that whoever's critiquing these people are given everything that they could ever ask for and they could possibly want, is that going to be enough to shut them up, or are they still going to critique these people? I think this is kind of naive to say, "Oh, I'll give you a seat in the House of Lords if you stop saying mean things about me," and then they continue saying mean things about you. It doesn't make any sense, and you know it's really bad that even if you do give your critics everything they could ever desire and want, they're still saying you're not doing a good job. They're still saying that you need to improve on this, improve on that. And they also even say, I think you need to go. I think you're better off. It's better off that you don't become or don't continue being leader as it stands now. But gobbledygook, bogglydock, do we need Subity do, and so on. Anyway, yeah, I am bamboozled to how that could ever been suggested. Yeah, anyway, that's enough of that then. That is all that's been sent to the group chat since the last time I recorded a podcast episode. Let's see what other news stories are roaming about in the mediascape this week. Suburban Detroit school settles lawsuit with Palestinian students over Pledge of Allegiance dispute. On Thursday, Plymouth Canton Community Schools settled a federal lawsuit with 14-year-old student Danielle Kalath who alleged a teacher humiliated her for refusing to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in protest of the Gaza war. The lawsuit, filed last year by the American Civil Liberties Union and the Arab American Civil Rights League, claimed a teacher publicly reprimanded Khalaf in January 2025, telling her, if you don't like it, you should go back to your country. Under the agreement, the district committed to mandatory diversity and First Amendment training for staff, will purge related records from student files, and accepted a $10,000 insurance payment on the teacher's behalf, though it denied liability. Plymouth Canton Community Schools Superintendent Dr. Monica L. Merritt praised the student for showing courage and speaking up, adding the district aims to foster an environment that is safe, respectful, and welcoming for all. This resolution affirms established U.S. Supreme Court precedent from over 80 years ago, protecting students' right to remain silent during the pledge. While the district pledged improved sensitivity toward diverse student backgrounds. Firstly, I would say I don't blame Danielle for not doing the Pledge of Allegiance in regards to whatever's going on in Gaza. I'll give her that. On the other hand, even if what happened in Gaza didn't happen, which it certainly did, there's no denying that. When I first heard about the Pledge of Allegiance, I really didn't understand. Why are you pledging allegiance to the United States of America? What's all of this patriotism and stuff? Then, over time, I realized, I'm not saying with it. I can see some aspects of why it would be important for people to show patriotism towards the country they reside in. And that's not to say you shouldn't acknowledge other countries and their cultures. It is important, however, that you make an effort to not just acknowledge the culture of the country you currently reside in, also learn about the culture which you are residing in. And if Eric and or Risk were on here right now, they will say, well, foreigners have been migrating to Western countries, bringing their culture with them and taking away the identity of the original culture of the Western countries. And to be honest, they may have a point. I'm not saying I agree with them. They do make a point. If you're moving to another country to find better job opportunities, provide a better life for your family, whilst it is important that you teach your children about the culture which their ancestry descended from, it is also important, more so at least, to understand and acknowledge the culture of the country which you are resided in, not just for the sake of assimilation to the culture which you reside in. It is also understanding the reasons behind why the culture of the country you reside in is the way that they are. You don't have to agree with any of these cultures. It is important to understand where they came from and why had it panned out to the customs and the culture of the country and just going back what I said earlier about Danielle not doing the Pledge of Allegiance in protest of the Gaza war. Again, I don't blame Danielle for not. It is okay to acknowledge devastations that are going on around the world. That is all I would have to say. Rob Schneider calls for US to restore military draft for our nation's young people amid Iran war. Actor Rob Schneider proposed restoring the military draft on Friday, arguing every American at 18 years of age should serve 2 years of mandatory military service to protect the nation's freedoms. The country transitioned to an all-volunteer force in 1973, though men aged 18 to 25 remain required to register with the Selective Service System for potential future drafts. Schneider, a civilian with no military service, claimed the unparalleled freedoms and opportunities of American citizenship are the envy of the world, but warned they do not come without a cost. Now, when I first saw the headline, Restore Military Draft of Nation's Young People Amid Iran War, I thought this was talking about getting young Americans drafted immediately, regardless. Now, surely I know for sure that is not going to be happening, even when there are particular criteria that would otherwise prevent young Americans from being drafted into the war with Iran. I am doubtful that any of the United States fighting forces would just drag young people from wherever they are and just put them into war. They know that it is not feasible, nor will it be possible, to do any of the sorts. And now, in regards to doing mandatory military service, actually, I can agree with that. And whilst, I'll be honest, I can't be asked doing military service, most times I don't want to do military service. The reason I say this is the reason why I believe mandatory military service should be put in place is not just for the sake of having people in the country preparing for war. Again, I am not saying that a nation's military is ever going to just drag young people immediately into war. Even with mandatory military service, I believe it is important to give people the experience of what it's like being in the military and what the customs in the military are and the challenges that people in the military have to put themselves through in intensive conflict situations. South Korea and Switzerland are countries that have mandatory military service put in place for all people in their countries. And look how well they turned out. Who can argue with that? And regardless of economic prowess, technological infrastructure, and a third aspect that people would bang on about to say that this country is the greatest in the world, giving people the experience of what it's like being in the military and the challenges that people in the military go through provides not just great experience for those people, it also provides better preparations for when a war does break out and there are people that are fit to go into combat. Again, not saying that a nation's military would ever drag young people out of their lives to get into global conflicts. Again, even with mandatory military service, militaries for countries around the world aren't just going to take anyone and think they'll be great for combat. I don't believe that would either be not just logistically possible. I also believe it would not be viable to think that you could just add more people into the arsenal or the personnel and think you can go into any combat situation and just instantly achieve missions and get them all done. You never know. Militaries of smaller numbers can still achieve their goals even with small numbers of personnel and with limited machinery and vehicles. Never judge a military by its size of personnel and military vehicles and equipment. And that is it for the episode.